When police arrived at the charred wreck on Highway 16, they thought it was open and shut, a tragic car accident, nothing more. But as investigators sifted through the burned remains, they noticed something strange. The driver's seatbelt had been cut from the inside. And when they found what was hidden beneath the trunk lining, they realized this was no accident at all. If this story shook you, make sure to subscribe and click the bell to Cold Case Secrets, where we uncover the truth behind the world's darkest mysteries. It began in the quiet suburban sprawl of Bend, Oregon, a place where the mountains kiss the sky and life moves at an unhurried pace. On the surface, Ethan and Claire Donnelly looked like the picture of a happy American couple. He was a construction foreman, tall, charming, always with a quick smile. She was a middle school art teacher, loved by her students for her warmth and patience. They lived in a modest two-story home on Pinecrest Drive, where the scent of pine drifted through the open windows every morning. Their neighbors described them as normal, the kind of couple you'd wave to across the yard or chat with at the local grocery store. But behind that picture-perfect life, something darker was taking root, something Claire had quietly begun to suspect months before the crash. She'd started noticing inconsistencies, strange withdrawals from their shared bank account, late-night phone calls that stopped when she entered the room, and the growing distance in her husband's eyes whenever she mentioned their future. To her friends, she confided, "I feel like he's hiding something. Something big." No one could have imagined how right she was. On March 14, 2021, Ethan called 911 just after midnight. His voice was frantic. He said his wife had gone out for a drive after an argument and hadn't come back. He claimed she'd been emotional, that she'd taken her car, a silver Subaru Forester, heading toward the mountains. 2 hours later, a passerby spotted flames near a wooded turnout off Highway 16. The car had crashed down an embankment and ignited. When firefighters arrived, they found the vehicle engulfed in flames, the cabin completely destroyed. The plates matched Claire's car. Inside, they found remains burned beyond recognition. The medical examiner could only identify them through dental records. They confirmed it was Claire. The report listed the cause of death as blunt force trauma and thermal injuries consistent with a high-speed crash. It was tragic, but nothing seemed suspicious at first. For weeks, the town mourned her loss. Ethan was seen crying at the memorial, clutching her wedding photo, whispering that he wished he could take back their last words. Local media covered it briefly. Just another heartbreaking accident. But to Detective Rachel Mirelli, something about the case didn't add up. Detective Mirelli had been with the Bend Police Department for over 15 years. She'd seen hundreds of accident scenes, but this one felt staged. The first red flag came from the coroner's timeline. The autopsy revealed no soot in Claire's lungs, meaning she hadn't been breathing when the fire started. She'd been dead before the crash. The second red flag came from the seatbelt. Investigators found it sliced clean through, not frayed, not torn, a deliberate cut. And then came the third. Fragments of gasoline residue found inside the cabin, near the driver's side door. Someone had staged the scene to look like an accident. Detective Mirelli went back to Ethan. His story began to crumble under pressure. He said Claire had stormed out after a fight, but couldn't remember what they'd argued about. He said she'd been depressed, but her co-workers described her as upbeat and focused, excited about an upcoming student art showcase. When investigators subpoenaed his phone records, they found something strange. In the hour before the crash, Ethan's cell phone had pinged near the same stretch of highway where the wreck occurred, despite his claim that he'd been home asleep. Then, 2 days after Claire's funeral, Ethan tried to file a $750,000 life insurance claim. Detective Mirelli and her team began combing through the Donnelly home, searching for any sign of premeditation. What they found changed the entire scope of the case. In the garage, behind a stack of moving boxes, they discovered a burn barrel. Inside were partially charred papers, insurance forms, an unmarked prepaid phone, and a set of receipts from a hardware store showing the purchase of gasoline cans, gloves, and duct tape just days before the crash. But the most disturbing find came from Claire's art studio. Her laptop had been wiped clean, but tech analysts were able to recover fragments of deleted emails and files. Among them was a folder titled Ethan_Truth. Inside were photos of her husband meeting a woman at a motel on the outskirts of town, the same woman who had been seen near the crash site days before the fire. It wasn't just an affair. It was a setup. The emails revealed that Claire had been planning to confront Ethan about the other woman. In her last unsent draft, she wrote, "I finally know what you've been doing. You won't get away with it." It took 6 months for prosecutors to gather enough evidence to bring Ethan in for questioning. He denied everything. But then, a small-town mechanic named Luis Alvarez came forward with a tip that would blow the case open. Luis had serviced Claire's Subaru a week before her death. He remembered Ethan asking him to install a hidden remote ignition device, supposedly to help start the car in the winter. Luis refused, but he remembered Ethan taking notes about how the wiring worked. Investigators soon found remnants of a similar device fused into the melted engine compartment consistent with a remote ignition detonator. This wasn't just a staged crash. It was murder. Ethan had rigged Claire's car to explode once she hit a specific speed, but something went wrong. The crash didn't ignite the fire instantly, forcing him to go back to the scene later that night to finish the job. Forensic analysis found footprints near the site that matched Ethan's boots. He was arrested on charges of first-degree murder, arson, and insurance fraud. But during the search of his home, detectives uncovered something that raised more questions than it answered. Hidden behind a false panel in the basement wall was a locked metal case. Inside were 3 passports, bundles of cash, and photos of several other women, each one marked with handwritten notes and dates. One of the women, investigators learned, had vanished 5 years earlier under eerily similar circumstances. Her death had been ruled accidental. Ethan had done this before. The trial of Ethan Donnelly became one of Oregon's most sensational cases. The prosecution painted him as a manipulative sociopath who used charm and lies to cover up his crimes. His defense tried to claim he was framed and that someone else had tampered with his car and documents. But the evidence was overwhelming. In 2023, Ethan was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted, some in relief, others in disbelief. Yet even with Ethan behind bars, Detective Mirelli couldn't shake a feeling of unease. One piece of evidence still haunted her, a small, unmarked USB drive found inside the locked case. When forensic analysts opened it, they found hundreds of images, documents, and videos, including one labeled Claire_Final. But when they tried to play it, the file was encrypted. Attempts to decode it failed. The system crashed every time the file was accessed. The only visible line of text was a note embedded in the file's metadata. She was never supposed to find out. Ethan Donnelly had been convicted for the murder of his wife, Claire, after investigators discovered evidence proving he'd staged her fatal car crash for insurance money. But just when detectives thought the case was closed, a hidden USB drive was found in Ethan's basement containing an encrypted file labeled Claire_Final. Every attempt to open it failed. Until now. It was spring 2024 when the FBI's cyber unit in Portland finally broke through the encryption. The file contained a single 12-minute video. At first, it was dark, just static and faint breathing. Then, a shaky camera image appeared, a woman's hand holding a phone flashlight, scanning across a cluttered garage. The timestamp read March 14, 2021, 10:42 p.m. That was the night Claire died. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I know what you did, Ethan." She moved the camera toward a tarp-covered object. When she pulled it back, the lens caught a glimpse of several gasoline cans, a rope, and a burned license plate from another car. In the background, a door creaked. Footsteps. Then a low, calm male voice. "You shouldn't have come down here." The camera dropped. The frame went black. A few seconds later, a faint sound of a car starting. And then silence. That was the last known footage of Claire Donnelly alive. Detective Rachel Mirelli had closed the case 2 years ago. But when she saw the footage, she felt her stomach twist. The voice in the background didn't sound like Ethan. It was deeper, older. Forensic audio analysis confirmed that the voice wasn't a match. If Ethan wasn't the one confronting Claire in that garage, who was? Within weeks, the Bend Police Department quietly reopened the case under the classification homicide, possible co-conspirator. Investigators began digging through Ethan's old financial records again. They discovered multiple transactions, small, untraceable payments routed through cryptocurrency wallets to an unknown account under the alias J.D. Walker. Each transfer was made in the weeks leading up to Claire's death. Further tracing led them to a warehouse near Redmond, Oregon, listed under a company called Walker Logistics LLC, dissolved 3 days after Ethan's arrest. When agents raided the warehouse, they found something chilling: piles of forged documents, including fake death certificates, life insurance forms, and VIN plates from burned vehicles. It was an insurance fraud ring. And Ethan wasn't its leader. He was just one piece. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became that someone had been orchestrating the entire operation. The name Jonathan D. Walker appeared on several contracts, but every trail led to fake IDs and disconnected phone numbers. Until a retired insurance investigator named Ellen Price came forward. She worked on a case back in 2015 involving a man who went by the same alias, J.D. Walker. Back then, the suspect had staged an accident that killed his wife in Northern California. The man vanished before trial. The name of that husband? Ethan Donnelly's uncle. But Marissa never checked out. Her car was found abandoned 6 months later, less than 10 miles from the crash site. Detectives now believed they were dealing with a serial operation, a network using fake deaths, staged crashes, and manipulated insurance policies to funnel millions over the years. Claire's discovery had accidentally exposed the system. And for that, she was silenced. Ethan may have thought he was controlling the plan, but someone higher was pulling the strings. Someone with the resources to vanish entire people. Then, in early 2025, a strange package arrived at Detective Mirelli's office. No return address, just her name. Inside was a small cassette tape, labeled BW 2018. It contained a recorded interview from an old unsolved arson case in Montana. The man's voice on the tape? It was identical to the voice from Claire's final video. The suspect back then had introduced himself as Brian Walker. And that case, like Claire's, involved a burned car, a missing woman, and a husband who swore it was an accident. The connection was undeniable. Federal agents now believed Jonathan or Brian Walker was a single individual operating under multiple aliases. A con man, arsonist, and possible serial killer who preyed on couples for profit. But every lead went cold. The only living witness left who might know more was Ethan. Detective Mirelli returned to the prison. This time, she played a small portion of Claire's recovered video. The moment she said, "I know what you did, Ethan," Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "You think I wanted this?" he whispered. "He made me choose." Mirelli leaned forward. "Choose what?" He stared at her, his voice shaking. "Which one of us would die?" Weeks later, while reviewing evidence from Ethan's home again, analysts uncovered an audio recorder hidden behind an air vent. It had automatically synced to a cloud account that had gone unnoticed during the original investigation. The final recording dated the night of Claire's death. 2 male voices. One belonged to Ethan. The other the same deep, measured tone from the garage video. Voice 1, "Ethan, you said no one would get hurt." Voice 2, Walker, "No one had to until she started digging." Voice 1, "We can make it look like a robbery." Voice 2, "No. It has to look like her fault. People believe a woman who's emotional, not a man who's guilty." A pause. Then, Voice 2, "You love her? Then burn it all. That's how you save yourself." The sound of footsteps. A car door. Ignition. And then the recorder cut out. 2 nights after that recording was found, the evidence locker at the Bend Police Department was broken into. Security footage showed a man wearing a cap and mask entering the building using stolen credentials. He bypassed every alarm system and went straight to one container, the one holding the USB drive from Ethan's basement. When officers responded, the man was gone. The drive was missing. The next morning, a single envelope was left on Detective Mirelli's windshield. Inside, a single note read, "Stop digging. You're next." Detective Mirelli refused to stop. She began working from home, quietly building a timeline of every case connected to the Walker alias. That's when she noticed something chilling. Every town tied to Walker's name had one thing in common: an unsolved accident involving fire. There were at least 9 across 4 states. Then, on the evening of June 18, 2025, she disappeared. Her phone last pinged near a rest stop off Highway 16, the same stretch of road where Claire Donnelly had died. Her unmarked police SUV was later found burned. Inside, investigators found a single item untouched by the flames: a charred laptop with a cracked screen. When powered on, it displayed one open file. The file name, walker_realname.txt. But before anyone could open it, the system shut down and wiped itself clean. The FBI officially lists Detective Rachel Mirelli as missing in the line of duty. Her colleagues believe she got too close to the truth. Ethan Donnelly remains in prison but has since been transferred to a high-security facility under federal protection. He no longer speaks to the press. And the mysterious man known as Jonathan or Brian Walker. He's never been found. But in the months following Mirelli's disappearance, 3 more suspicious accidents have occurred in neighboring states, each eerily similar in method. The same signature. The same silence. Some say Walker is just a ghost story, a myth born from fear and coincidence. But those who've seen his pattern know better. He doesn't kill for revenge. He kills for control. And if the rumors are true, he's already chosen his next target. Because one final clue was recovered from Mirelli's destroyed laptop, a fragment of a message she'd typed but never sent. He's watching the ones who tell their stories. Thank you for watching Cold Case Secrets. End of Part 1, to be continued.